Hello, is that working? Yes, there that is.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Everyone, I don't know what was happening. It was showing on my end there was audio. I think that's working now though, right? Awesome. Fantastic. So I was talking for about 5 minutes with no one being able to hear me. So I am truly, truly sorry about that. I see people saying yes now. So for the 5 minutes that you guys missed and that I was just talking to myself, just very briefly, I gave the intro of that we talk to each other in the comments. As you can see, that we communicate like this, and we end up really trying to answer questions and get to know each other that way. So feel free to throw anything that you have that way. I'm very sorry about that. But the first thing that I mentioned, I just wanted to really briefly. I'm going to go back to where I was. I see some people requesting that, which is totally understandable considering you didn't hear a word that I said. The first thing I'd said was just wanting you guys to know that we have open submissions on the Elegant Themes blog. So we want to get your ideas out there. You can work with our content manager, Nathan B. Weller, and really refine those ideas and get them in front of our audience. We really want to get you in front of our audience more than anything else. So check out that link. It's the first one under the description. It's a paid thing. We aren't asking you to work for free. You guys are fantastic, and we really just want to showcase you. So check that out. It's a good idea. It's a good deal. I say it's a good idea in that when I was freelancing, that's the kind of thing that I was all about, finding stuff like that. So definitely check that out if you're a writer and have ideas that the WordPress community at large would get something out of. Sorry, and then I'd moved into the news section, which there are only two things that I found under news this week, and I wanted to talk first about Matt Mullenweg putting out a TED Talk. The TED Talk that he put out isn't a normal TED Talk. It's not a typical, standing in front of people, moving from here, moving to there. It's kind of a talking head video. It's about 5 minutes long, so it's not a very large commitment that you're going to have to do. But it is a video on distributed work, and that's something that probably a lot of us are dealing with right now, where we're not part of a central office, that we're working on our own, either out of a home office or a coffee shop or a co-working space or something like that. And so Matt was talking about how the entire Automatic workforce, the company that works with WordPress.com and that he runs, they are completely distributed across the world. That he talks about how he doesn't like the term remote because it makes you think that there are some people who are central and others are remote from them. And he was talking about how there is no real central office for Automatic, that everybody is distributed and they get together once a year. And he was talking about the benefits of this kind of work and how you can move toward it. And so it's just a really interesting idea that you can just think about if you're not part of it. Because I say I work remote because we have an office in San Francisco, but I found remote work to be absolutely fantastic for me. This is by far the environment that I thrive in, and so watching this video really did solidify that for me. And so maybe some of you guys will have that same kind of feeling. He also was talking about, the article rather, was also talking about how Matt Mullenweg was pushing a new thing called distributed.blog that nobody really knows what it is. We know that when you go there, distributed.blog, all it says is the future of work is here, and there's an email sign up. So that's all we've got right now. You confirm your email and then you're on the list. So something will be happening eventually with this, and I'm sure it's distributed, so I'm sure it has to do with remote work and distributed work. And so it's just something that I have no clue what it is. They mention it in the WP Tavern article, and I thought that it was definitely worth mentioning. I threw my email on there just because whenever somebody does marketing like this, we're like, hey, something's here, sign up for it. I'm always going to do it. I'm a sucker to know exactly what this stuff is and want to know. So I assume that there are people like that who are watching right now, and that you guys will probably want to sign up for that as well. So the links to both of those, the video and the distributed.blog, are in the first link under news. I'm going to hit the comments for a second here. I thank you guys for telling me that there's no audio, by the way. And I especially want to thank Pablo on YouTube, because he was the one who actually tagged Elegant Themes, and it caught my eye when the on our side an orange flag comes up whenever you say that. So I noticed that out of the corner of my eye while I was talking. So so Pablo, you're the hero of the day. But I see that there are people like JL, Web Creative High. I see Douglas on YouTube with something. The distributed blog, we're not sure what it is. It's distributed .blog is what Matt Mullenweg is pushing right now. We're not sure at all what it is, but we're going to sign up for it and see. It may be a new product. It may be a new service. It could be a new newsletter. Who knows? But it's going to be something. I see that Jamie on Facebook asked when there's going to be another, I'm assuming Divi update, a new ET update for the new theme and the theme builder or header and footer builder. That is soonish. We're working through it. That's one of those things that we don't have an ETA on that. I have absolutely no clue. That is when it. I hate to say it's ready when it's ready, but it's one of those, we want it to be the best experience for you guys and to be what you're waiting for. So that will be coming out. It is being worked on, though. So yeah, now the second thing that I put under the news, my mouth is so dry. I apologize for that. My mouth gets very dry when I talk. But the second thing under news was an article that Torque Mag posted, and Torque always puts out good content. Like, their stuff is some of the absolute best that is out there in the WordPress world. And they talked about the Google EAT algorithm, that the Google EAT algorithm. And we know that over the last 6-ish months and moving forward into the end of this year, that Google is really changing the way that they're going to do search engines. And I put this under news for a couple of reasons. That I wanted to make sure that we talked about it, because there are some things that we end up not getting to some weeks. And also because this is newsworthy in that I have not seen it personally. I may be living under a rock here, but this is the first time that I've seen it broken down like this on what we can do right now to change and make sure that we're not getting penalized by changes that we didn't know about. So this one, when they're talking about it, they said that back in August of 2018, that they rolled out the very beginning of this update to the algorithm. That they were talking about how it's not as big as some kinds of algorithmic changes. They talk about one named Mobilegeddon, and clicking through the links, that's when the new mobile friendly algorithms came out when back in 2015, when people lost so much of their page rank. But what this is, this one does, the EAT, is it changes how Google ranks YMYL pages. And this is one that I'd never heard of. I'd never heard of this particular thing. I thought they were talking about YAML pages at first, and but it's not. It's an acronym, they said, stands for Your Money or Your Life. And it was really, over the past 10-ish years, we've had a real boom in health and preventative medicine and organic living, and I'm part of that. I mean, I am all in on that kind of stuff. So, but they're talking about how those kinds of sites that represent, as Google says, that could potentially impact the future happiness, health, financial stability, or safety of users are getting looked at much more stringently. And so they talked about how they, the ones that really got hit by this, was talking about prevention.com, livestrong.com, Pillsbury.com, Century 21, the real estate company, Charlotte Roos, BuzzFeed actually got hit by this. Android Central, Men's Health, these were hit because they can impact those kinds of things based on spending more to save your life or make your life better in some way. So they were talking that you would see about 50% visitors on a lot of those sites. They were talking about how like health lost 41.5%, e-commerce lost 16%, travel 3.5%, but there was a pretty standard loss in domain rank or domain authority at back in August. And so now we're looking at it, and they call this the EAT algorithm. Apparently, it focuses on expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. Expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. This is why those got completely knocked down, because they don't have all three. Because most of the time you have a couple of those or one of those on a site, but rarely do you have all three from your users. And that's what we need to work on for all of our content from now on, that with the block builder and everything that's come on with WordPress, Yoast is really upping their game in terms of that's the SEO plugin that you use. WooCommerce is doing a lot of this, where we are looking at a lot different in ways to focus on SEO. And they talk about the expertise that the site that you're building, that you have to know what you're talking about. It actually looks at the how good your information is that you're providing. And if you're in one of those kind of not so much health and fitness only, but one of those YMYL areas, you're going to have to make sure that your information is spot on. That if you're talking about controversial issues, that you cite your stuff, that you provide links and footnotes to things where people can go look up where you got your information instead of it just being you. I mean, you may know this, but Google doesn't know that you know it. So you're going to have that follow through, that their crawlers can see, okay, this is why they're making those kind of claims. That's how you can prove a lot of the that's how you can prove a lot of that stuff. I see Chris on Facebook says go keto, hashtag meat heals. I went 80%-ish keto. I did a low glycemic thing back in 2010 and lost about 150 pounds. So you are absolutely right on that. It works for some people, and that's one of those things that stuff like that, it will work for some people. It may not work for others for various health reasons, and so you have to be able to cite the reasons for that. And I mean, I'm with you on that. But I have to cite it. That's the kind of thing that absolutely Google looks at. I also see, while I'm at it, I see to Irfan and Jamie from Colombia and Pakistan. Nice to see you guys here. They talk about the authoritativeness that you have. That's the credibility of the website. This is why all of those niche sites that people were making for years and years of just Amazon affiliate links and RSS aggregation of different products, and it was just nobody trusted those. So now they weren't authorities because they weren't anything at all, but they were high ranking. So the credibility and the brand that you've built up really matters. How long your domain is registered for. 1 year domain registrations actually get hit by Google a little bit more because they may not be something that are going to be around for a while. Outside reviews they take in, testimonials, any kind of credentials, all of that stuff. Like a certified personal trainer saying something about keto would have more weight than a Beanie Baby seller on eBay talking about keto. Because that's their particular certification area. And then there's trustworthiness. I mean, they look at things like site security. Nowadays, y'all know we have to have HTTPS. Y'all have to have an SSL certificate, or Chrome tells people that you're not trustworthy. I have domains that I didn't even know needed an SSL certificate because they are solely subdomains on that redirect to somewhere else, like a Slack so-and-so for an invite. And those I had to put SSL on because Chrome didn't like the redirect. So, I mean, security is of the utmost importance to gain trust with Google. It talks about just in general your site security, making sure that things like two-factor authentication are set up for users. Anything like that will make sure that those EAT guidelines are really followed and that the robot will see it and be able to rank you higher. Excuse me. And then they were talking about how to actually implement this was looking about like not tricking the search engine, but the way they put it was take a hard look in the mirror and ask yourself what you're doing and what you want to achieve. They talk about how one of the most important things you can do, and this is, I'm the worst at this, and I've got to go back for some projects that I have and optimize my about page, putting testimonials on there, putting different awards, positive press that you've gotten, academic titles, business address and contact details, those kind of things. If you're going to give an address on your about page, you're far more likely to be a real and trusted business than someone who does not. It can even be a P.O. box or something like that. I mean, if you're working from home, I know that you don't want to give everybody your P.O. box or your home address, and you get a P.O. box instead. Stuff like that is huge on the about page, they're saying. And they have an article that you can link into on other trust signals that goes through there. And then they talk about show the expertise of everyone on your site. If you have multiple contributors, then have their bio show so that Google will see that it's not just another username for you to use or for so-and-so to use. We do this on the Elegant Themes blog. If you see at the bottom of all of our posts, we all have a user bio on there. The example that Nick gives, Nick Schaeferhoff, the guy who wrote this article, who you'll also find a bio on the Elegant Themes blog occasionally, gives the example of really just having a blurb about what they are, that tells what blogs you do, what your expertise is, which all kind of goes back into this ranking of where you stand in that. Managing your reputation, they said, look at press coverage, look at the search console to disavow links from untrustworthy sources, different reviews, guest posts, testimonials, all of that stuff. And then they talk about actually improving your content, making it semantically rich and speaking to the user to solve a problem as opposed to speaking to the robots for keyword stuffing. So this, I think, is really important because it's broken things down so much that I really wanted to spend some time on this, as you guys can see, because this is something that I run a fitness blog. One of the things I have as a side project is a fitness blog, and it went about August, and now I know why. Because I was a small fish in the whole thing, but now I know how I can go back and really kind of bring that blog back from the dead and talk about it. I see, and really get it back up into where it was. They talk about doing this, and I think that's so important because there are a lot of you guys who are either doing that yourself, or you have a client who may have been in that position where they lost some rank and you lost some rank, and it's just a mess right now, honestly. There's a lot of just messiness in terms of gaining domain authority and page rank from Google now, and this one breaks it down so well that I think that we could all get something out of it. And given that it's a new article that was published that really I've not seen one break it down like this, definitely wanted to put it under the news for y'all to make sure that y'all saw it. So there you go. If anybody is just joining us, that was the news section of the weekly WP Roundup. We go through news, tutorials, and resources every week. We always record this video. You'll be able to see it on our YouTube and Facebook archives, and all the links that we talk about are in the description of this video, so feel free to expand that. I see John on Facebook. Hello, what's up? I see bunches of other people. Torspedia. I mispronounce everything. And Katie. Hi. But now we're gonna move on into the tutorial. So let me click back over in here. And there was a really cool one on the Elegant Things blog. I always want to highlight a couple of hours that were published on the blog that Jason did, because this one is micro interactions. The first one under tutorials is 6 micro interactions that'll make your Divi site more enjoyable. And that's the whole thing with micro interactions, is that they just put a little bit of pizzazz on it that make your site more fun to use. One of my favorites is the Divi, just the basic Divi email sign up form, the opt-in, where you mouse over it and the button changes and you can make it transparent in the background. I don't know why, I just love it. And he talks about scaling image on hover, that there is a bouncing scroll down icon where it actually draws your attention as it goes down. Rotating blurb and buttons icons, where instead of it like sliding in and out when you mouse over it, it will, rotate. Sliding instead of normal just appearance and fade in and out. And talks about a 3D image perspective rotation, which I am totally taking advantage of on a site soon, because that one's awesome. That one's number 5, and Jason made my life better with that one. And then number 6 is a button slider micro interaction that I like a lot, because it's one of the most useful things that is on any site. That when I see it, it's a button that when you hover over it, it changes to tell you what kind of download it is or whatever other information it is. But he has it as a type of file and the size of the file. That I adore it when I press a button on a website or go to, and it's like, oh, you're downloading an MP3 and it's 3.5 megabytes. It's like, great, I didn't know that. And because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to download a WAV file that's 300 gigs, and because I'm downloading like 3 hours worth of audio. But that's something that I thought was really great, and y'all should check those out. And he's got tutorials on all of them on how to walk through and the code and everything that you need for them. So Jason knocked it out of the park on that one. And then we also have a 2019 Color of the Year John Hughes wrote about. This year it's called Living Coral, and every year Pantone takes a color and really makes it the color of the year. And this year it's RGB 255 111 97, and we have all of that stuff on the website here in this blog, and just kind of shows you how to use this color, because coral is not a color that everyone may be able to use effectively. So having a blog like this, like, oh yeah, those are the colors that go with it, and those kind of things really help me out whenever I'm putting stuff together. I see that Jazzy Bear Brown on YouTube says that too bad that there's no hover on mobile devices, and that's a big thing. It's like I know one of the things that I like, and I haven't tried it with these in particular, but one of the things on hover I like is that you can get a single tap, a light tap on it, and it interacts enables the hover animation, or whatever the hover effect is. I haven't tried it with these, but I know that that's happened quite a bit on like Safari on my phone, and Chrome on my Note. It does that. Those kind of things are very good because of most hover effects are lost because of that. And I see Torspedia says that using Living Coral as your main commercial site, that's awesome. The only issue that I've ever had with doing anything like that is that you start seeing a lot along that same kind of palette, and that you have to do something really unique to make yours not look like every other blog or website in that niche. One of the conferences I went to about 3 years ago was talking about how at the time you would go look at photographer blogs, and you could look at you could just Google photography portfolio and see all of these professional photographers, and almost every one of them that she was pulling up to show just on a typical Google search was a black website with a grid below a small, probably 200 pixel header, and most of the time, the majority of the photos had not only lens flare, but I don't even know what it's called when there's the burn, the afterburn from a light. Like almost all of them did that. So we were all talking in the panel about how, yeah, I mean, it looks really good, but you have to be careful on how to do this right and make it set aside, which I think is one of the only things of using any kind of color that evokes a particular emotion, because coral, when I see a coral site like that Torpedia, it's one of those that it's like that's going to be a very fun place for me to go, a very relaxing place, and I think that's part of why they chose it this year for Pantone. So I see Bertrand in France says it's not afternoon but evening. That is the hardest thing to get right on stuff like this when we're doing it in like good afternoon, and it's like nope, 9 o'clock here. It's one of those where I know that I know Donietta does her streams locally at 9 p.m. For me, right now it's 2:32 in the afternoon, so I have not had. It's not dark outside for me yet. So moving on just a little bit past the Pantone color, Torque Mag is talking about keeping your website running like a well-tuned car. And while I am not the person that anyone would ever trust to let their car be a well-tuned machine, websites are kind of the same way. And it's interesting that the first one they said was update your plugins and themes every month. I don't do that. I update my plugins and themes about every day, and I realized I shouldn't be doing that. I just hate the notification. But stuff can break so easily that when you open up a sandbox environment, like they talk about in this article, that you can really just sit down and do a maintenance period where you're making sure that everything is like it should be, and nothing is going to have an unforeseen consequence just because you hit update all. It's a really good idea to do it every month, and I'm probably going to take that into mind instead of doing mine whenever I just log on. Talk about optimizing your WordPress database. They talk about the speed and optimization tips that we talk about. And then the best one in my opinion is use only top of the line parts. Talking about vetting your WordPress plugins, because sometimes we put things on there that are really useful and really they're convenient, but they can also be done by adding a single snippet of PHP in a functions file maybe, or maybe it's not being kept up anymore, but it's still working, but so it can break at any time. Maybe the reviews are getting bad for new updates. Whatever it is, you need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence on whatever plugins you're putting on your site, because sometimes it is definitely going to be a matter of, I don't want to say life or death, but livelihoods, or livelihood and loss, I suppose. So check that out. Make sure you do that. But just a really good thing to keep in mind, and really like, am I following the best practices that I can be here? And a lot of times, no, we're not. I am certainly not. Aaron, that's a good point on the radio. Good morning, good evening, and good night, wherever you are and wherever you're listening from. That is very true. That is, I like that. I may steal that from you and probably give no credit because I'll just be talking and rambling, but you know it's you. So moving on into the tutorials just a little bit more, I do want to try to get into the resources because sometimes I don't. They talk. There is a Get Flywheel article. Flywheel's a WordPress managed host, and they do a really good blog called The Layout. They have one this time called How to Get Involved, 4 ways you can start getting involved in WordPress development. And they're really really simple because they're not always for developers. It's like beta test new WordPress releases. Did y'all know that there's a release candidate right now that you could download for the newest WordPress update for 5.1 that you can get in on plugin development? You can write documentation, that kind of stuff for open source plugins. You can contribute to core. We've talked about this stuff, but I really wanted to include it because of the beta test new releases and beta test new releases of plugins too, for that matter. That kind of thing really helps because you'll find a bug, you'll submit it. You might find a blog too, I don't know. But you submit it, and then that will get fixed and not ruin someone's day. So you're really being helpful by using beta candidates. Oh, I see a message was retracted right as I get down to look at it. I saw the chat scroll. So maybe I'll get that one soon. And then they talking this one. I'm just getting ahead of myself. Velocitize is a really cool digital culture technology blog that I'll occasionally pull from. And this one was an article called 3 Ways to Market a Website on a Shoestring Budget. And these are, again, things that you're probably doing already, but it's a refresher, and I want to make sure that you're thinking about it because, you need to use social media, but you need to use it right. You need to look at where you're putting your money, like what platforms, who is your audience, have you refined your demographics lately? Are you getting the most out of your money as you possibly can? Are you taking advantage of deals that they're giving you? Because Facebook will occasionally give you free ad credit that you can just spend and be like, okay, I got some ads. I did this to boost a post or get likes or whatever it is that you want. Using the Facebook pixel, things like that, which I know is a very controversial thing depending on who you ask. That they're, focusing on SEO like we did talked about earlier, that going back through your archive and updating it for current SEO standards for some of the better posts that have fallen off, that's good marketing because you're going to get it out there to new people. You do enough updates, you change enough of the content, you basically rewrite it, change the date on it, publish it as a new article. It publishes to your feed as new. It publishes at the beginning of your at the top of your blogs on your website. It goes to new email list subscribers. It's just there's a lot that you can do with old content like that, which gets me to the next point that they bring up. Make use of email marketing. I've done a podcast for the last 3 years, and we do not have an email list. My best friend was telling me, asked me yesterday if he could start running an email list for us because we need one. And I'm like, yes, you can. Let's do this. And we started working on it because I didn't have time. I never thought about it. It wasn't something that we were doing, but it's the most basic, highest return investment that you can have is getting email subscribers. And if you do it right, you can get email subscribers for under $0.25 each on Facebook if you know how to target your ads. There are articles out there for that. I don't have any to link to, but I've read them. I see... I see that there's some comments I want to try to get to on Facebook. Sorry, Donna on Facebook says that she doesn't spend for marketing, which is a really normal thing these days because you can do so much without actually spending anything. That when you do spend, if you do spend, it's just over and above because you can really do a lot without spending a lot. I know that I've got an idea for an article to write where I'm talking about press releases, that we don't do enough press releases for marketing because my wife is a publicist for a library. And you would be surprised for local media how much that they need content from local newspapers and local radio and things like that you can send out press releases, and when they have a spot in their publication, their website, anything to fill, they will take your exact words and put it on their website or in their paper, whatever. and they don't have to rewrite it, they don't have to edit it, they don't have to do anything. They just take yours and put it on there, and you are getting your word out there for the cost of sending an email or a letter or whatever it is, and establishing a contact with that place. So no, it is absolutely not. It is not required to spend money on marketing. I mean, a lot of people do. Don't get me wrong, but it is absolutely not required. And I see Bertrand says, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that, that duplicate content is not really good. And I've been reading lately, Yoast did this. I think there was an article a few weeks back. If you Google Yoast and duplicate content, stuff like that, a fairly recent article, that was talking about how duplicate content, we're scared of it more than it actually affects us, because they will rank the one that that obviously gets the most traffic and everything. But if we make use of canonical URLs, that if we are pointing a rel equal canonical on some links back to the original one, that duplicate content actually doesn't hurt you. It still only ranks the other one, or the main one that you're using. That there are ways to get around that. I've seen some today. There's actually an article under resources about duplicate content. So I want to scroll down to it while we're talking about that. Thank you, Bertrand, for bringing that up. That if you look under resources, it's the very first one. It's a WP Mayer article that is called "How Content Curation Can Help Your Site Reach 100,000 Weekly Hits." And it's going through particular sites and ideas of using RSS to pull curated content from specific places and publishing it on your own site, either with excerpts, or you can do it with full content. And there are ways to do that effectively, that you can duplicate content without being a scraper, without doing things like gray hat and black hat to do it. And I really liked this article because it's something that I've been thinking about doing. I mean, I go through and I find all sorts of stuff for you guys here, and I'm reading everything every week. And I mean, not even in this particular field, but I like doing this. I like picking things and sharing things. And so reading is just what I do. And I read about video games and, the game dev industry and fitness and all this other stuff, that there could be a pretty decent curation spot somewhere within my side projects to do stuff like this. And my fear for a long time has been duplicate content. I don't want to profit off of other people's work. I don't want to be someone who does stuff like that. And this kind of article, it talks about a case study with classiccarcuration.co.uk, really does it right. That there are ways that we can do this and use other content to do it right. And also, Douglas, it is the first one under resources. It is the one by WP Mayer. On YouTube, asked which link this was that I was talking about with curation. And also, Bertrand, when I was talking about republishing it, if you change the date, it actually doesn't keep the old article in its place. It keeps the old article and all the link juice that it has, but it shows it as a newly updated post for everything. And because it had new content, if you redid the content, you won't have two articles on the site with the same words, and the URL will be exactly the same. And if you did keep the old one published, you could always 301 it to a new page like that to be able to pass down most of that link juice as well without worrying about duplicate content. And eventually the new one would get ranked as well. But this one was neat, talking about the car curation website, where it's talking about how sometimes you don't have enough time to get everything out. This is a really well done website. Like, this site looks like news sites I look at in every kind of niche that I'm in. I've seen something that looks like this. And they talk about a really good plugin that you can use. There's a suite called Simple Feeds Bundle. It's about $80. on Code Canyon, but it's talking. It shows what it does with this site, which is making me personally consider it. But there are others that I've downloaded and want to try as well. They talk about other sites that do this, and I just think it's a really interesting idea because it's fun to find things, y'all. It's fun to share stuff. It's fun to be able to have like on sites like this to find links that you didn't know existed and that you get to enjoy as well. So I just really like sharing content with people. So of course this one really caught my eye. You just got to make sure that when you do this, that you're doing it the right way and you're not penalizing yourself for duplicate content. You're not penalizing someone else for duplicate content, and you're not stealing someone else's work and not giving them credit, because that is a big ol' no-no. Please don't do that. The English teacher in me is cringing at the idea of how much internet plagiarism there is online. Ooh. But yeah. So they were further down. Might as well stick to the resources. We've got about 13 minutes left on the stream. So if you go down just a little bit below the content curation one under resources, you'll see one called Jumpstart Your Freelance Writing Business with 9 Professional Tips. And again, this is the kind of article that I use all the time to consistently keep myself refreshed. That I'm like, am I doing this? Are these the kinds of things that are going to bring me success, or am I doing something to shoot myself in the foot? Where they really talk about nurture professional relationships. When was the last time you emailed contact? Just said hi, just to be like, hey, wanted to see how you were doing, or I saw you did something good, and it was great. I wanted to just let you know. Stuff like that goes a long way. Going to word camps, stuff like that, going to conferences and greasing palms, shaking hands, being nice to people, making friends. That's how you get work. Because as a freelancer, I've said it before, where one of the most lucrative and long-lasting relationships I have with an editor came from being on a committee, the chair not having the chair being approached to write an article, not having time, her throwing it to me meeting that editor, him giving me the article, me writing it, then his friend needed an article written, so he asked if the first guy, if he knew any freelancers, and he gave me the other one, my name to the other guy, and it's like, that's how freelancers work, and like actually work. And so it's really a good idea to remember that you're not in this alone, and to really just get to know people. Cold emails, they say have a really low return rate. They have and they turn people off, but that doesn't mean that you don't just keep in touch with people that you know, or if you want to have a relationship with someone professionally, introduce yourself and say hi. Don't even offer your services or say, hey, I really like your brand. I've been a fan for a long time. I use this every day, and I'm from, I work in this industry as well. So keep it up. Thank you. That kind of thing opens up that dialogue. So that's really important for freelancers. They talk about being a master interpreter. It says being attuned to the end reader's perceptions. What makes writing challenging is the need to do justice to the communication aspect of the piece, which is my number one thing for content creation, for writing. I told my freshman composition classes this every year, that if people don't understand what you're saying, it doesn't matter how eloquent it is. It doesn't matter how good your ideas are. If they don't understand what you're trying to convey, you're not communicating, and so you're failing. And so this is one of those things just to keep up with, to know who your audience is. And keep that in mind as you're writing, because it gets really easy to fall back once you've been writing for a while. And this is my voice. This is what I do. People like this. When honestly, sometimes they don't. And we need to interpret what the other people need from that. Developing your own style, though, is super important. They talk about there's a reason they hire you instead of somebody else. Jazzy says it right on YouTube right there. Read as a writer and write as a reader. That is about the perfect way to put it. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like the next one, number 4 on this list, they're talking about is read, read, read. That the more you can read, the more stuff that you can have. Like, open up every article that I link to in the description of this video. They're all so different. The tones are so different. But if you read each and every one of them, I guarantee you that you'll have an idea for some sort of article to pitch to either your boss, your supervisor, a publication that you've thought about, the elegant theme submission, something that you will have thought about by just reading a bunch. That's how you get ideas a lot of times. There's a book by Austin Kleon, I think that's how you say his name, Kleon, called Steal Like an Artist, and it's about taking other people's work, being inspired by it, and being able to do something new with it. It's great. So yeah, you read as a writer, Jazzy. And then the last thing is quantity is less important than quality. Not always. Where sometimes turning in good work is better than turning in a lot of work, because you can meet every single deadline that you have, but if the writing is garbage, they're never going to hire you again. So just think about it. Think about what you're doing. Think about how you do it, and just reevaluate where you stand in terms of your freelance writing, whether you're getting into it or whether you've been doing it for years. It's never bad to take just a few minutes for self-reflection. Be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I need to fix that. We all do it. And like I said, I've been hit by this a few times. If you go below that one in resources, there are 8 superb abandoned cart emails that Cats Who Code are looking at, where they talk about what you can send to people when they've abandoned your cart for particular reasons. And they'll show you, like, using non-generic copy, don't make it sound like a template, offering discounts, things like that. Just ideas for if you want to be able to regain that sale for someone who left your site, to be able to do. And I always like articles like that, because usually there's one on the list that I haven't thought of or seen before. And so usually it's a way to be like, oh yeah, I'll send that out today. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you, so maybe you could recover some abandoned carts. There's one that if you scroll just a couple down beyond that, you'll see that's called When to Use and Not Use Mega Menu for Navigation. They talk about, it's on Toots Plus, that they go through when it's great. Like, sometimes you absolutely need a mega menu on a website. And sometimes you use a mega menu and it's terrible and no one likes using it, so no one does. And that means you're wasting real estate, you're wasting server processes, you're wasting the reader's time, because they see it, they click it, and they see something, they're like, I'm just going to do something else. And they're not going to use it. Where they talk about the user experience, that you have to think, does this make it easier for people? What works better to let people navigate the site? Would a mega menu work, or is there another navigational technique that will? They talk about how when to use a mega menu when people are expecting it, like departments and things like that. If they have departments upon sub departments, when a drop down menu would be too large, that sometimes you have a single drop down that is, it would go below the fold when you open it up. Mega menu time, stuff like that. But when not to is when you don't have a lot of links, the last thing you want is a mega menu to make your website look like it doesn't have a lot of content. That when your homepage is nothing but links, that's a good idea. I didn't see this one earlier when I read through this, but it was talking about how if your homepage is links and you have a menu for any reason, don't make it more links. It's just going to clutter everything up. That kind of thing. And you don't want it when you want to funnel your visitors to a particular page. This one I thought was really interesting to think about, because every site going to want to funnel them somewhere. There's some goal of your site. And if you have one particular place that all of your marketing efforts and web design efforts are directing people toward, don't give them a lot of options. Let them have a big button that will take them to that place and go to it. And then please, the last one that they talk about on here not to do is please, you guys, please y'all, please never use a mega menu on mobile. Never. It's bad. It's just straight up bad. There's just not anything to say. Like there are ways to make it okay, but if it looks like one on desktop, no. So that's a good article to go through and think about. And then to wrap up, I wanted to point you at, because I'm about to have to go, so the very last one that I'm going to be able to talk about is Code NWP. Sorry, I'm stuttering today, and I apologize. That Code NWP has one called the Best 6 Standing Desks Compared. It's how to pick a desk that matches your needs. I tried a standing desk, and apparently my posture is terrible, and I cannot do it. It is not something that works for me at all, but I know it works for a lot of people. And so they're very expensive sometimes, and there are so many different kinds that you can get. And they talk about the different types that there are, and they talk about how you use them and what you should use them for. And then they break it down into specific desks and how they hold up within those parameters. And so I figured that there's somebody watching right now who either has a standing desk and is unhappy with it, which may mean you need a different kind of standing desk, or that you're thinking about a standing desk and you just don't know what would work for you. Maybe they have one in this link, one in this article that would grab your attention. And one of them that I like actually is an IKEA one. It's a standing desk in that it's a really, really tall desk. It's not a rising up one. It's not one that has any special kinds of mechanisms in it. It is a big table, and it's $83 at IKEA, and it is 4 legs and a tabletop, and you can get more desk space for that, but they are just these really, really tall legs that would let you have a standing desk, because you just have a desk that is standing. And so that kind of thing I wanted to point out, because it doesn't have to be really expensive. I mean, $83 is an investment, but in terms of office furniture that's going to last, it's not the $2,000 standing desks and things like that you'll find. So a lot of theirs are like $250 to $450 for electric ones, $420 for the Jarvis desk, $230 for a desktop one that rises up with cable management stuff. It's just good stuff in there, and because they break it down so well, I figured there was somebody who could get some use out of it. So that is all the time that I've got today, you guys. I really appreciate y'all coming today. I really appreciate y'all taking the time out of your days or your nights to spend the time with us. And I really appreciate you telling me, Pablo, that I had no sound at the beginning of this stream. It meant a lot to me and to everybody who's watching, because the worst thing would be to have sat here for an hour and talked and no one have heard me. But I really want to thank you guys for that, and I apologize for the mishap at the very beginning. And I do see that Douglas says that he has a standing on YouTube, says a standing desk that he bought at Costco, and he will never sit again. This one is motorized and beautiful. It has a touch screen for height, USB ports, and it has felt-lined drawers. It is $300 and fully motorized, and says it's amazing, and that is amazing. I have never heard of one with all of those features for $300. That is, you, my friend, got a fantastic deal, and thank you for letting everybody who's watching this know about it. So that's a good place to go. That's a good place to sign off. So again, thank you everybody for watching. I do this every Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. Our next live stream will be Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern. Mac will be going through a Divi feature. And then on Tuesday, we have our Divi use case, which I believe this week is coming up with Jason walking you through how to use a Divi in a very particular way. I learned so much from the use case videos, and I'm always asleep when Mac does his, so I can't speak to those as far as live, watching them afterward. But thank you guys. Make sure that you hit the notification bell to be reminded when those go live and when I go live, and let Facebook know that you would like to be notified whenever we go live, and you'll be able to see all of them. So I hope everybody has an absolutely great week. Thank you, everybody. I like meeting all of you guys. And thank you for all of you, you newcomers who I hope that you will come back and we can get to know each other better. I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful week. Bye, everybody.